Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beaver Mosh, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Nepenthe, who just put out a compilation release combining their newest EP, Fading Promise of Tomorrow, and their 2020 EP, Elegies of Loss and Doom. This is coming off of Hypotherol Records. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. How are we doing this afternoon?
Good.
Yeah, no
Good.
problem. We're doing great, I think.
Oh
Good,
yeah.
pretty good. Long day, but good.
Cool. So right off the bat, you're putting out this sort of compilation, putting two EPs in a single package. Kind of why was your decision to release the music, this way?
The main thing was that it was just a practical thing. So
Hmm.
like we felt like because Hype Thrill Records offered to do a physical release for us. So originally we were just supposed to put out the EP alone, but we
Hmm.
realized that if we were going to put out vinyl, it was much better deal to put it out with the old EP because
Sure.
it gives everyone who buys it more bang for their buck. But the new EP is also kind of an extension of the style and sound of the old one. So
Hmm.
it also just felt right to kind of turn it into an album.
So do you consider this
From
a full length then?
uh, not really. It's still a compilation, but we felt that it would flow more like an album if we combined the two.
Sure.
But it's still just a compilation to us. I think I'm speaking for everyone, but
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so you described, at least I've seen your sound described as seen the term blackened doom thrown around, and that makes sense. But I mean, I do hear more. I mean, I'm picking up on even some like neo folk in there. How would you kind of sell your sound to someone who hasn't heard you before?
Scott.
Well, it's kind of hard because like every song we don't really approach it thinking about like I want to write a doom song or I want to write a black metal song. It just ends up being whatever ideas we come up with and it just sort of comes out any which way that it decides and we don't really think about it that much.
Yeah,
But that those are all styles that we're all interested in and they all seem to meld together well enough, so it just works
sure.
out.
Yeah, we all have pretty varying tastes
Hmm.
overall in bands and genres and whatnot, but I'd say for all of us, what bridges the gaps would be black metal and neo folk. And maybe to some extent doom metal as well, but
Yeah,
that's like the only things that we can all agree on for the
Lately,
most part.
there's been a little more influence of like I don't know what you would call the like post stuff. Like it's more of like the gothic kind of like sound with like more kind of guitar-y effect sounds and stuff
hmm,
like that. More like
definitely heard
typo
that.
negative a little bit, or like Woods of Eve. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much accurate. I feel like
Yeah,
Black and Doom. Because like a lot of those styles just all get mixed into like a single song,
Yeah.
hmm,
rather than like here's a black metal song, here's a doom song, here's a folk song. Because we use elements of those in our songwriting, just and but we don't think about it.
it's interesting you mentioned typo negative just on a personal note because like the past 2 weeks, I even tweeted about it. I've been on a huge like gothic metal binge. Just it was a lot of typo negative, catatonia,
Nice.
mid-era paradise lost. I was really into that stuff lately. So cool to hear you guys playing with that sound too. It feels like that type of metal for a while kind of went away, but I think bands are just now starting to experiment it with it again. So
Yeah, these guys got me into it. I never really knew about it
yeah,
until I joined the band, and so like it was very new to me, and like I've been into metal for a while, so
mhm,
it's never cropped up in my view. So
sure.
maybe the other guys can say more to that for sure.
There's a term that gets thrown around in metal journalism that I've never been a huge fan of, Cascadian black metal. But
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Okay.
when people use that term, they are describing kind of a record like yours. I think a band like yours. I think, at least in my ears, are probably pulling from other acts like Agalloch and Panopticon, maybe Wolves in the Throne Room. That atmospheric, slightly folky, sort of melancholic black metal sound. Does that kind of land with you at all?
I'd say that's probably Scott's the biggest songwriter in the band overall, and that's probably a lot of what he listens to. So I think that
Yeah.
that fits
I've
for
never even
sure.
heard the term cascading black metal,
Yeah,
so I wouldn't
Yeah,
even know
same,
what that
yeah,
yeah.
is.
same. That's new. That's pretty new to us.
Okay. Yeah, if you like type it in on like metal nerd forum places, it's describing that very North American sound of brand of black metal.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, since there are two eras being presented on this record, how would you say you as a band have evolved since that first EP in 2020? Can listeners kind of, do you think listeners can kind of pick up on that evolution when kind of listening to the two EPs
I
back
think
to
it's
back?
very prominent with like the opening track from the new EP of just like it's more in the direction tonally of where we want to go and like how we want to expand on like certain ideas, even if that our new material is like pretty different, not going to be quite as like um as epic with like I'd say like the new song has like a lot in common with Drowning in Acrid Light and like a
Okay.
little bit with Dawn, where they have like these extended like super atmospheric lead sections and stuff like that. Um, but I think that's one of the songs that kind of ties it together, and then we kind of fully fledged some other ideas within the new EP that we hadn't tried before.
We're
Yeah,
also
I
just
would.
much more competent than we
That
were back
that
then.
that too. Like I listened
I
back, even just like my bass playing, and just like, why did I do that? Because like, okay,
I would say it's almost more of the closing of that era rather than the beginning of a new one. I don't know. I guess it's hard to quantify that sort of thing, but I feel like the
Hmm.
stuff that we're writing for the album that we're working on right now is more of like the new era of the band, whereas
For
like
sure.
Fading Promise of Tomorrow is more of closing off what we started with, I guess.
And so do we plan on putting a full length out and on a Hypotherol? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, potentially for sure. That's
yeah.
a strong consideration for us.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
We've been pretty transparent about that sort of thing too with Chris from Hype Aetherol, and we've said like we might shop around for a larger label as
And
well.
he's very supportive of
Yeah,
that too.
he
He
just
has
that's what I love about Chris and that label. Like he just wants us to succeed, and he
Yeah.
tries to give
yeah
us whatever tools he can give us to help
Yeah.
with that.
yeah
He's
So
like a
it's
genuine fan of like the music, all the music on his
yeah,
labels
he's a
and
music
stuff. So like,
lover.
yeah, he's
yeah.
like super into just
So
like
yeah,
doing
you
it for helping the bands out, really.
even if he would probably be sad to see us go if we jumped ship, but he completely understands.
Yeah.
But there's very few labels that we would consider over High Pay Throll at this point, though, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's treated us very well.
And such a short time too that we've been working with him. Like he's already done some cool stuff for us and with us, and like made communication very easy. And and he's asking us about our shows and all that we don't play or that he doesn't attend and all that. And it's really
Yeah,
cool. It's a good
yeah, he's a good
situation.
guy.
I have this conversation with bands all the time. I've done, you know, so many of these interviews, and with this conversation comes up a lot about like smaller labels versus big labels, and band considering that. And there, the pros and cons I think are obvious. I mean, with like Hypotherol, right? It's not a large roster, but there is a lot of individual attention that they are able to put on each of their bands. Like if you were to
Mhm.
hop to like say a $20 spin, you're not going to get that, even though there might be more eyes on you. It's like kind of like
Yeah,
weighing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and like I think like a difference with that is like Chris is one guy. It's
Mhm.
a it's a one man operation, whereas like a label like Eisenwald's gonna have a team, or same like Von Records, stuff like that. Where it's like
Von
he's
Records
putting
is almost like a solo label, though.
yeah,
It's just gotten really big for being a solo label.
Yeah.
but there's that attention just like in each individual release has this like full attention at that time type of
Yeah,
thing.
true, true.
Mhm.
where he wants the label's image and growing and like the band's image and growing. It's like it's hand in hand in that stake. So you want to put your best foot forward with that as like an established label. If an album flops or something like that, they can usually take that hit. But if a small band dropped and the small label just put in like, say for example, like $7,000 worth into the marketing and physicals and stuff like that, and it flops, doesn't make it back, then that's a pretty big hit
Yeah.
to like a smaller label.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, I read a little into the lyrics of the two EPs. And from what I can tell, you're really leaning into these topics of inner pain and loss, doom stuff. But also, from my understanding, you have an interest thematically in different philosophers, very prominently being Nietzsche. Can you tie all that together for me?
Um, I guess as a disclaimer, I am no philosopher. I took 1 year of philosophy courses,
Neither am I, so don't worry.
and so I don't know much about this stuff. But I guess I really like I would say Nietzsche has resonated with me a lot over I'd say almost the past decade of reading him for me, and like um I guess it's kind of the one idea that I like a lot that I try to write about is sort of the idea of constant war against oneself and sort of creating positivity through chaos and
Yeah.
negativity. So I like that a lot, but I guess I still tend to write some fairly wallowy kind of stuff every now and then too. But I try to keep a positive twist on it, and I think Nietzsche has been good for that.
Yeah. I have not dived into it a ton myself. When I was in college, I did read Thus Spoke Zarathustra, that I think every
Okay,
college
yeah,
kid tries to read.
sounds good.
Um, I mean, you said you're not a philosopher, but you clearly have read a lot. As you said, you've been reading for a decade.
Yeah, I've read a fair bit. Like
Yeah.
I've read like 4 or 5 of his books,
So
I guess.
I'm going to ask you then, and if you can answer this, does Nietzsche tend to be misread? Because I mean, I think the layperson's idea of his thoughts is it's like nihilism, right? It's like everything is
Yeah,
futile.
okay, yeah.
But most people
Yeah,
who study
definitely.
him would say that that's not entirely accurate. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Even with my dipshit level understanding, I think even just calling him a nihilist, I feel
Yeah.
like is wrong because he was not a nihilist. He was trying to overcome nihilism.
Right.
So yeah, I think you're definitely right about that. That's like probably the biggest misunderstanding.
And he is used, depending on your interpretation, he is used on both like very far right sort of and also very far left, and just kind of depends on
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
interpret what he's saying.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, let's go back a bit and talk origins of this band because you are all are or have been involved with other bands in the Ontario territory. How did the four of you come together for this particular project?
So it started out with Scott and I meeting in high school.
Mhm.
His Scott's older brother used to play in a band called Unbowed. We were both
Yeah.
wearing the same t-shirt one day because I was getting an interest in local music, and Scott just had one from his brother, and we slowly became friends over time. And then we decided we wanted to do music, and then I reached out onto like a Facebook group for local music, and then Conrad was the first one to respond to us, and it was just like a perfect match. Like we've been pretty much best friends ever since. But we had known Steve through the local music scene and became
Yeah.
friends with him over the COVID years.
He
Uh,
replaced Trevor in Unbowed, actually.
yeah, that is also
My
Oh
true.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but once we kicked out our old guitarist, we tried one other person. It
Shout out to
wasn't a
Sam.
shout out to Sam. Also shout out
Big
to
ups.
Alex. But then we asked Steve to join. I think originally it was just supposed to be like him filling in live for shows
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then over time, we decided like Steve is a great fit for us. Like he helps collect our
Aw.
thoughts. He's a good guy.
Actually, reality, they're just holding me for ransom. So
In reality, Steve
Yes.
told us that he was in the band because they were like, yeah.
I joined definitely just like because yeah, like Chris said, we all just kind of realized we all like each other and we like hanging out. And even if I like all my other bands played a pretty different style of metal, but it's not like, it's not all related. Like Unbowed, there's essences of like Woods of Eep, all the Ypres, all the guys in that band really like that style, and like it makes sense. Like Nepenthe and Unbowed are very like similar in terms of like lyrical styles and stuff like that, and like the singer of Unbowed is also like a pretty intelligent guy when it comes to philosophy, and he's read a lot as well. And it's just like we're all similar people, and so the camps kind of just like ended up coming together and sharing musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty small but close scene, I would say.
Especially within
in
the Guelph
Guelph.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like
I was gonna-
I'd say like sorry.
no, go for it.
Oh yeah, like there I'm not kidding when I say the scene is small. It's pretty much like us and Unbowed and then like a few other bands.
Yeah, I think there's a
That
few
are
more
actually
younger bands that are coming up now that are
Yeah,
pretty
there's
cool.
some popping up. Yeah.
But they're just like just getting started younger. They haven't played too many shows, and like I got to keep a little more tabs on the local scene as well. What's going on with it? But
I could also just be completely out of touch and I have no idea what's going on
exactly
anymore.
right. And like this style
could
of
be
music is
dead
very
wrong.
different. Like it's a lot of it is comes from like we're just some of the few in Guelph that really are willing to like we like this music and we like playing it, we like seeing it live. You know what I mean? Like it's just not like a
Yeah.
Not
For
a big
black
audience
metal,
for
we're
it.
like-
yeah, it's not a huge audience. Yeah.
Yeah, for black metal, where we might be like the only black metal band.
Yeah, but then we got like clean singing and stuff like that. Not every like younger metalhead who's just getting into it is into clean. They're always like, no clean vocals or something like that. I was like that for 6 months or something like that. So
Yeah, to be totally honest, before I started the interview, I wasn't very familiar with Guelph, but from what I understand is you're like
Fair enough.
yeah, understandably.
Yeah.
you're about 40 miles away from Toronto. Do those two scenes like overlap at all?
But
We
go and
play there a
there
fair
all the
bit
time.
now, yeah.
Yeah, and we're doing our best to get in there. And the guys from Kitchener, like Waterloo area, also
It's
play
kind
in
of the
Toronto
goal.
a bunch. And yeah, it's like Toronto's more of the hub, right? We want to be playing a lot more shows in Toronto because that's where all the shows really happen. So
Plus, it's
Basically
like-
for
at least around here.
yeah. Yeah, basically for non-Toronto, Southern Ontario bands, the goal is to start playing in Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, there's also not a lot of black metal bands and not a lot of bands that we stylistically fit with.
Mhm.
So we tend to know pretty much everyone within like the music genre that we
Mm.
play. At this point, there's not a lot of bands out there that we get to play with just because of how stylistically different. Like in our early days, we always got put in with like metalcore bands and stuff like that, and we're like, we hate this.
Yeah.
But now now we know pretty much who to play with, and it's not a very big list.
Yeah, I mean Toronto, however, I at least from my understanding, has a huge black metal scene. I think Fantafaxis is from there.
Yeah,
and also
and
like
Panzer Faust, and
yeah.
that's about it for like the bigger bands.
yeah,
I mean, you have like Unrequited up in Ottawa, but they're band that we at this point wouldn't play with unless we're opening for them on tour or something like that.
sure.
But as
They're
far
a
as
lot
like
bigger than us.
yeah, they're a lot bigger than us.
All three
But
of those are.
yeah,
Mhm.
like I'd be like over the moon to play with any one of those bands,
Mhm.
but it's not a band that we're gonna get just for like, oh, we're playing Toronto this date, let's get these guys to play with us type of thing.
Yes.
More or less, hey, let's get our buddies in like Where the Light Fades or Flock Name Murder or Shadow to
Droff Nos or
our boys in Hell's Other People down in Windsor.
yeah.
But there's not a lot of bands for us to choose from, so we have to be kind of strategic in how we do shows and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, we want to make the bills like cohesive and like good. Like we're all consistently tired of having randomly build shows that don't match with these stuff. Like a lot of the shows around here, I'm not gonna name names, but like there's a lot of just like inconsistency with the type of bands that are on each bill, and it's just very annoying. I want to see typically 3 or 4 bands that are similar style. I don't want to see a punk band and then a funk band and then a death metal band and then a jazz band, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
War were declared by Nepenthe
Yeah.
on the local scene.
But that's just more our gripe as a band and like
Yeah.
with the style that we play with.
No, anyone hearing that, we didn't use, but anyone who might think that they're called out, take it personally.
Yeah, if you think we're talking about you, we are.
Take it personally.
Strong chance.
Yeah.
I'm not the hugest channel, so maybe the chances of seeing this are not like the highest, but it's also possible. So who knows?
We can only
yeah,
hope.
True. Yep.
What about doom bands in your area? You know, you mentioned that there's not much of a black metal scene. Are there any at least doom bands?
There's
that.
some.
I said that
Most
one
of them
band,
are
Droth
really
Nosra.
boring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Droth Nosra was pretty doomy.
Yeah, they're pretty
They're
lame.
cool. We played with them a couple times in Guelph and Toronto. And
There's a Horse Lung. Horse Lung's
Horse
really
Lung's
good.
Lung's cool.
Yeah, we
Mhm,
liked playing. They're Toronto, I think, but
There is like another
non-Toronto though. I have no idea. There's I actually, you know what? There's a few. There's Space Pope out of Kitchener.
yeah,
We haven't
Space
played
Pope
with them.
too. Yeah, we
were
haven't.
going to play with them at one point, I think, but the show got canceled or something. Yeah, there's not a lot. It's more bands like us that have doom influence,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like what Steve said. Like Droth Nosra is a good example. They're like kind of doomy. They're doom metal mixed with like black metal and death metal, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And like they have like it's a very droney sound. It's very cool.
Yeah.
And they're a 3-piece and it's just sick.
They got a
All that
lot
type
of
of shit.
the newest stuff. They got a lot of like post metal influences, which vibe with
Yeah.
us.
There is Banger TV is based out of Toronto too. It's
Yep.
worth pointing out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like even our friend Sarah does videos for that channel as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
She doesn't live in Canada anymore, but
Yeah.
She did give us
Shout
a
out to
shout
Sarah.
out in the
Yeah.
last interview she did for the Body's new album. So go check that out.
Oh yeah.
Well, Nepenthe, that was all that I had planned to ask you myself. But of course, before I let you go, I want to give you the floor for all of the plugs, so people where they can find your music, give the socials, give any last words you want, clothing thoughts, hot takes, whatever you want. Go for it.
the main place to, as for plugs, the main place to support us right now is on the High Pay Thrall Records Bandcamp.
Mhm.
That's where you can find the full compilation of Fading Promise of Tomorrow and Elegies. There's our Bandcamp too, although we just have some merch and the original EP on there. Other than that, we're on Facebook, Nepenthe Doom on Facebook, Nepenthe Doom on Instagram.
Yeah. You can
Yeah,
listen
you can
to
find us
like
everywhere.
Spotify, iTunes, all that.
Oh yeah, we're on
Got a
like pretty much
vinyl.
every streaming
We got a
service.
vinyl for the new EP. It's on everything. So go
Mhm.
pick that up. People like vinyl nowadays again. So
It is true.
there you go. Nice.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
It is a pretty sick one too.
Yeah, we were so happy with it and all the art and
gosh,
everything.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it was great.
Okay, final thought.
It's very nice.
Remember, it's all
yeah.
about the money.
It is all about the money.
We do
Oh yeah,
this
that's
only
why we
for
do
the
this.
money.
Yep.
Nepenthe is we're miserable
money
people
maxing
fueled by
band.
alcohol and nicotine,
Mhm.
and we do it for the money.
We're money maxers.
Yeah, that's why
Money
we're all
currency
underground
maxing.
metal.
Yeah.
We're all doing it because it's the best way to get rich.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
art
yeah.
is stupid. We're just doing this as a get rich quick scheme.
We're
100%.
totally not in the hole for this for thousands of dollars.
Yeah, no, are you kidding? Yeah.
Totally not.
It's in fact the opposite.
Yeah.
Even maybe.
Yeah, I'm in one of my many private villas right now. I drove here in a Bentley.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, James Hetfield may have money, but not as much as Nepenthe.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh,
definitely
dude, are you
not.
kidding?
No.
He's definitely below us, way below.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nepenthe, for joining me. It was a pleasure. For everyone watching at home, of course, go check out the new compilation. It's out now on High Pay Thrall Records. As always, thank you to my patrons. You help keep the show sustainable. What you watching right there, keep it metal. My name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh, and I'm out of here. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maddie. It was a great interview.
Take care.